chapters 13 through 15. Page 75. Expertise is utilization and effects on economy. I ran the whole way home and saw the car in the driveway. I burst into the house. They were in the kitchen with Grandma. "Oh, hi, Pumpkin," Mom said. "Would you like some lunch?" On the run over, I had decided I would tell them everything. "Mom, Dad, Grandma, please sit down on the couch." "How about lunch first?" Dad held up a knife covered with mail. No time, please, now." Mom said, "You've been acting so strange lately." "It's puberty," Grandma said. "He's becoming a man. Men act strange from time to time, and I am worried about what the hole in the ozone layer is doing to the plants in the rainforest. You know that guy who was sitting in the car yesterday?" I shook off the image Grandma had put in my mind and refocused on the situation at hand. "The big guy? Yeah, that's him. His name is Joseph Powdermilk. He's a professional boxer, a prize fighter. His next fight is Saturday night, and if he wins, I get half his winnings." "What on earth are you talking about?" Mom asked. "Why do you get half of his earnings?" Dad frowned. "Why should he give you anything?" "Because I bought his contract and I sponsor him." They sat down. Arnold, my stockbroker, bought the contract for me." "Arnold?" Dad asked. "You have a stockbroker?" Mom whispered. "His own boxer?" Grandma beamed. So I told them the whole story, fast. They nodded, sometimes shook their heads, then nodded more. Listening, always listening, and I kept going, explaining Joey Pow, and finally Rock and his gang. When I finished, I took a deep breath, and I think they're in Arnold's house now, holding him prisoner. No, I know they're in there because I saw them, and I don't know what to do. Dad stood. "Call the police." At first I thought of that, but nobody would believe me anyway, even if I could call them. "But with your parents with you, they would listen." "What do you mean at first? And why couldn't you call them?" "He means," my mother chimed in, "that it's difficult to go to the police because some of his employees are poor people who really need the money, and if the authorities come into it, perhaps they'll find the workers aren't all documented the way they should be. Isn't that it, Pumpkin?" I nodded. "Thanks, Mom. I know we should call the police, but I was hoping there might be some other way. What do you guys think might be able to think up a way to solve this?" I let it hang there. They were the smartest people I knew. I couldn't come up with something nobody could. Dad said, "We go to your strength." "I don't believe I have one." "Sure you do. Literally. You know a prize fighter. But I don't know how to find him." "Now," Mom said, "the thinking comes in." It took her just 3 minutes on the internet and 2 phone calls before I heard Joey's voice on the other end of the line. Meanwhile, I was shaking Grandma off because she wanted to say hello to him. "Joey, it's me, the sponsor." "Yes, Rock and his men are at Arnold's house, holding him prisoner. I think for money, and I can't call the police because a lot of my workers will get in trouble." I heard the phone click, and Joey was gone before I finished speaking. I hung up and turned to my parents. "Let's go over there." "I call shotgun," Grandma said as we scrambled to the car. Chapter 14, Resource Utilization, Its Causes and Effects. At Arnold's, we parked behind Joey's station wagon just as he was stepping out of the driver's side. "Shouldn't we help him in some way?" Mom asked, until she saw him standing. On second thought, Joey can handle it, but we're going with him. I got out of the car. No matter what happened, Arnold might need help, either during or after. I started walking toward the house, Mom and Dad with me. Grandma brought up the rear. I knew, or thought I knew, what was coming. Joey had gone into the porch slowly, closing the screen door quietly behind him. By that time, we were close to the house. If the front door was locked, it didn't slow him down. He hit it with his shoulder, took it off its hinges, and was out of sight. There was a muffled thumping sound. Oh no! Rock or his men might have a gun. Later, I found it was just the sound of one of the men having his head jammed into a dishwasher, without opening the door on the washer. After the thumping, there was a second or two of silence, followed by a scream, and one of the men was throwing out the front door so hard he took the porch screen off its hinges that was propelled into the yard, riding the screen on his hands and knees like it was a bodyboard, until he hit the elm next to the walkway. The elm was probably 100 years old, very big, and didn't give a millimeter when the man plowed into it face first. A few seconds later, Joey came out with Rock in his right hand and another man in his left, carrying them like cats by the backs of their necks. The first man was still in the kitchen, jammed into the dishwasher. Later, I found out that Rock and 3 others had been in the kitchen with Arnold tied to a chair. They thought Arnold had told me to come to his place, and they'd been planning to force me to give them money when I came. I told you, Joey said. I believe the sponsor alone, or I would pinch your head. Please, Mr. Powdermilk. Mom was standing by the sidewalk, a half-horrified, half-admiring expression on her face. Couldn't you just give them a stern talking to? Yes, but I did that before. When they made trouble the first time, I told them that I would pinch their heads if they came back. They came back anyway. Talking to them again won't help. Pinching their heads will. Grandma was nodding. I won't come back, Rock said. I promise this time. I really do. You don't have to pinch my head, really. I'll do what you say. See, Mr. Powdermilk? Mom nodded. I think he means it. Joey stared at Rock in one hand, then studied the man in his other hand. He peered over at my father, who shrugged and said, He seems to be telling the truth. Then Joey turned to Grandma, who said, Probably not the best move, young man, although personally, I'd like to see you pound the snot out of them. Joey sighed and looked back at my mother. If you really don't want me to, she shuddered. I would really rather you didn't. All right, but if they come back, I'll have to take care of things my way. I understand, and they understand, don't you? Both men nodded enthusiastically. Then, please let them go, Mr. Powdermilk, Mom said. He dropped them, and it was like watching those cartoon scenes where a dog or a cat is held off the ground and his legs start moving faster and faster until he's dropped and he shoots away. They disappeared in half a second. We all went into the kitchen and found Arnold tied up, but not gagged. I introduced him to my parents and Grandma while we untied him. The man, slumped against the dishwasher, was regaining consciousness. Joey picked him up by the neck and threw him the length of the hallway and out the front door. Arnold was none the worse for fear and made a pitcher of his special iced tea for us. We all had a glass while Arnold explained how he wanted to set up my account with Mom and Dad, and Grandma asked if Arnold could find her a boxer to sponsor too. Then my mother held her glass up and said, I think, a line from Shakespeare, all's well that ends well, except that wasn't the end. Chapter 15, Serendipitous Activity and Its Effects on Capital Quantity. We all went to the fight Saturday night. It was a huge auditorium with a ring in the middle and a bunch of fat men smoking cigars that smelled like dog poop when a hot mower blade hits it. Women with not a lot of clothes on were hanging on to the men. Because I was a sponsor, I had ringside seats for Arnold and my family, and when we arrived, it was pretty exciting. Joey came out in a big red robe, followed by his manager in a red t-shirt. He took off the robe and pumped his arms in the air. He had on red trunks. The ring announcer introduced the fighters, and we cheered like crazy. Grandma blew kisses, which made Joey blush and look away. The other man wore green. When the bell rang, the fighters came out of their corners and took a stance in the middle, like they were going to box. Only they didn't. The man in the green swung at Joey, and Joey ducked a little and used his right to hit the other guy so hard it sounded like somebody had slammed a melon with an axe. The other boxer slid backward, already out cold, until he hit the ropes, then slithered between the bottom rope and the mat and out of the ring to land in the lap of a fat man smoking a cigar. We all jumped up screaming, Joey, 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 pow. He waved a glove at us. The fight lasted 4.5 seconds. That was it. The purse was $5,000, and I was due for half. Wow. This was just the start for Joey. He was going to have many more fights. When I went to bed that night, I had a dream about him doing a whole bunch of 4.5-second fights until he became world champion. It was a great dream, in color, with Joey wearing the red trunks for luck and with a lot of action. And because it had been such a late night at the fight, I slept hard. When the phone by my bed woke me up the next morning, I was still in the dream. "It's me," Arnold said. "We have a new development. Don't worry. As long as he keeps wearing red trunks, we're bound to win." What? The dream was hard to shake. As long as he keeps wearing red trunks? Wake up. It's me, Arnold. Oh, I shook my head. Scattered the dream. All right, so what's the problem? It's not a problem. You remember the walleye stock? Sure. The one that made me rich? That's the one. Well, I put in the sell order back when I said I did, and the record said it sold for $4 a share, and you came up with $48,000 and change. Yes, and change. Except the sell order didn't go through like the computer said it did, and the stocks didn't change hands the way they're supposed to, some kind of technical follow-up. So, for all of this week, you have still owned walleye stock. In fact, you still do. And there have been some massive shifts in the value. Even half awake, I could feel a sinking in the center of my stomach. How much? I said, though I didn't want to know, really. Did we lose? Oh my, no, the stock didn't go down. It went up. Up? Yes. There was a secondary merger of some stature, and a large software company took the whole thing over. They're always doing things like that, these high-risk software stocks. I remember that. Arnold, how much? Oh, well, the merger triggered some more interest. So the stock jumped to $40 a share. You have 12,000 shares at $40 a share. Numbers, more numbers. 12 times 4, 48. No, not 48, but $480,000. Yes, of course. There will be fees and commissions and the like, but still, it should be just a little under that figure. Now listen, please. It's Sunday and the market is closed, but I heartily recommend that tomorrow morning, when it opens, we sell the stock and put the money in something solid and long-term. I didn't faint. This time I didn't faint. But I did hang up, and I got out of bed and went down to the kitchen, where Mom and Dad and Grandma were making a late breakfast. And without thinking about telling them to sit down, I gave them Arnold's news and found there must be a weak male gene in our family because Dad fainted. We put him on the couch. He's coming around. Grandma patted his hand. She turned to me. You know, dear, Grandpa always said, take care of your tools and they'll take care of you. The end.